What's up? How you doing? Beautiful day today. Beautiful day. A little bit breezy, but not bad. See a couple of crows over there drinking water. Nice snow up in the mountains. Need to get a beverage. Have some records here. I'm a big fan of vinyl. Love the sound vinyl makes. And it's making a comeback. I mean, it's been making a comeback for many, many years now. There was a time when the CDs were all over the place, and now I think people have abandoned CDs. They'd rather download or something off the internet or vinyl. And I was in the record store, and the guy had a very nice turntable. Beautiful sound on the speakers. I miss those days where vinyl ruled. Nice, pictures inside, the lyric sheet. I would always buy that, and I would investigate, where the credits went to and all that. But I never read the lyrics the first time around. I would always play the album a couple of times without looking at the lyrics. And then after that, I would indulge. I would get into the lyrics, I would analyze, I would break it apart. Now, it's not the same anymore. And I remember years ago when I was a kid, I would go down, there was a little record store in my neighborhood. It was a mother and son. The son was young. Now you see him, he's all old with a cane. But back then he was a little kid. And I would go in there, and they had iron-ons in the back. You could pick iron-ons. They had a machine. They'd give you a t-shirt. They'd press it on. I want to say they did not last long. I don't know. I was not impressed with the quality, but I would still buy them. They had a t-shirt. It said the Little Itty Bitty Titty Committee. I never bought that one. They had the Hardy Boys. I remember the Hardy Boys. Farrah Fawcett. These iron-ons. Who else are there? The Bee Gees, they were a big thing. I had gotten the $6 Million Man iron-on back then, right here, a big one. And then my mother, not really aware of how to iron shirts like that. She actually tried to iron the iron-on, and she smudged it. She went through it, and I said, "Who did this? I wonder." So anyway, I had to toss that one. I actually became a rag for the kitchen. But I remember going down there, and the 45s were in the front. They were $1 each back then, and you would get the latest hit on the radio. You'd go through them. It had a smell in there too, like they would burn. I don't know. It was a. I don't want to say it was lavender, but it was something like that. So I would go in there and I'd buy my stuff. Usually, I would get the 45s. And I wouldn't get the LPs from there. I would go elsewhere. But the 45s I would get from there. So anyway, right here I'm a big fan of ABBA. I love ABBA. I had a friend in the 6th grade. I met him in the 6th grade. And we would talk about music a lot. And we would constantly talk about ABBA. He was a huge fan, and so was I. And to this day, when I go driving somewhere, I put in the ABBA. So this was their new one, brand new studio album after 100 years. I don't know if you can see that. I Still Have Faith in You, cool song. When You Dance With Me, cool song. Little Things, they're all, cool songs. ABBA, ABBA can sing anything, it sounds good. Don't Shut Me Down, I love that tune. Ode to Freedom, that's a good tune. And it was written by Benny and Bjorn. They got letters that don't belong together. Bjorn. Bjorn or Bjorn. I don't even know how you say his last name. Anderson, that's easy for me, but I mean, if I hear it, I know it, but Ulvaeus. This is made in France. So this, even though it's been so many years later, they really did a good job. It still sounds like the old ABBA. You know, sometimes you'll get an album from a band that's been retired for decades and they put something out, it's not that good. This is pretty good. I highly recommend this. ABBA in general, though. So, I have that. I don't want to put them down on the concrete. I'll just hold it. The next one, cool band. A band called Kansas. So, I'm a huge fan of this band, but they have a song on here that when you hear it, gives you the goosebumps. And it's Dust in the Wind. Dust in the Wind. They don't write songs like that anymore. As a matter of fact, nobody writes songs. Nobody writes songs like this. Now it's all artificial sounding, you know. The vocals sound artificial, the music sounds you know, generated in a laboratory. And back then you had guys, you had women, you know, they came together creatively, they wrote beautiful songs, great melodies. I mean, there's good songs now. There's, you know, because I listen to contemporary music right now. You know, I have young kids. They listen to it, so I'm aware of what's out there. I'm not like those old people that they don't know what happened after 1967. I have a good idea because I hear it. And there's a lot of good stuff I enjoy listening to. Then there's a lot of stuff where it's too artificial sounding. But as far as the warmth, you know, you hear a song like Dust in the Wind, they don't write stuff like that anymore. Here's another oldie but goodie. Love this band. And they have a song. It's a cover version for them, but I feel like they did the best version. Hear that. Nitty Gritty Band. Nitty Gritty Band. Get the guy in the back. Same guy. Now he's got a big harmonica in the mouth. So I'm a huge fan. Uncle Charlie here. Nitty Gritty Band. And the song for me, Mr. Bojangles. Mr. Bojangles, what a great story. I mean, that, you feel it. You feel that. I actually have a video on this channel with that song in the background and me doing a little dance, because I can dance. But anyway, I love that song, Mr. Bojangles. And like I said, they do the best version. Best version. You know, I know Sammy Davis Jr. did a great version of that too, but for me this one was a little bit better. But his was very good too. It's not bad. And he was a dancer, so he kind of looked like maybe he was Mr. Bojangles. There's a guy there running slow motion. If you run, like if I turn the camera around, you'll see. If you run that slow, so basically it's like walking speed, but he's doing a bit of a, you know, like that kind of motion. Why don't you just walk? You know, you don't have to run like that. Ridiculous. Does this, you know, shuffle thing going. Anyway, this is a soundtrack. Rocky. Original motion picture score, Rocky. Music by Bill Conti. And had no idea what this movie was about when I was a kid. I thought Rocky was the bad guy. I thought he was the villain. And so I was on my bike. I had this bike. I had a nice red bike back then. It was my first bike. And I was on the road. I was heading down, you know, and I remember it was drizzly. Kind of like that raw weather was not cold, but, you know, I'd say in the 50s. And I was on my bike, and there was a drive-in theater, or theater, on the right side of where I was going. And right in front there, they had the sign, you know, of the movie that was playing in there, and there was these big red letters, Rocky. And I thought Rocky was a bad guy in the movie. I thought, I don't know, I didn't know it was a boxing movie. I thought it was some kind of villain. And I didn't even, you know, I go, I'm not going to see that. What is that about? And then, I don't know, a few years later, it was on television, and I think I'm going to watch it, see what that's about, see what's going on with this Rocky guy. And I fell into it, loved it, because, you know, me and my father were huge boxing fans. I'm still a huge boxing fan. I mean, we watched all the Muhammad Ali fights in those days, you know, Thrilla in Manila, Rumble in the Jungle, you know, the Larry Holmes fights, Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, you name it, we watched it. And in the older days, when I was really young, you know, they had free fights at Wide World of Sports, ABC. Then they got smart. They said pay-per-view, and then we started paying. I think it was $19.95 for a while. It went to $29. Then it went to $39, then $49, and I don't know now. It's like about $1,000. But very sunny here. But anyway, I saw Rocky, and it just everything about it. You know, the cinematography, the locations, kind of like my area, like the way I grew up, those kind of locations, train tracks there by the gym. I was kind of like that, walking around in those kind of areas. So immediately I became a fan. Then I went and saw part two, very emotional ending, loved it. Then when 3 came out, I couldn't see it. It was always sold out. I would go, they would say, Rocky 3 sold out, Rocky 3 sold out. And then my father would bring me up again, and I'd go to get the ticket, and they would say, Rocky 3 sold out. And so then we went down. This area was quiet, part of the state. I had a cousin who lived there, and she said, what do you guys want to do today? And I said, I don't know. She goes, you want to go see a movie? I said, all right, we'll go see a movie. Not even thinking of Rocky 3, but I'm ahead of myself. Prior to seeing this movie, there were all kind of rumors that Rocky dies. So everybody's like, Rocky dies in this one. So I had this friend who comes up to me, and he's like, hey, guess what? I saw Rocky 3. I go, you did? I go, how was it? He goes, it was awesome. He goes, but Rocky dies at the end. It's very sad. He goes, he's telling me all this stuff about how he dies, and I'm like, oh, really? They ended it like that? He died? He goes, yeah, here's a funny thing about that. First of all, Rocky did not die, but I never saw that friend again after that. You're talking back in '82, never saw him again. I wanted to tell him, hey, you told me he died. What did you see there? Why are you making that up? So he didn't see it either. He had heard. So what happened was he wanted to make it look like he was on the inside, like he had knowledge. So he made it up. And then I went to see it, and we go to the theater. It was behind an airport, one of those little airports. And I went in, and I said, it was 3 of us. I said 3 for Rocky 3. And she hit the button, and I go, I can't believe it. No, not sold out. We went in there. It was me, the other 2, right? So 3 of us, and there were like maybe 2 others in the theater. And I sat and I watched it, and I loved it. I loved the opening with the Eye of the Tiger, everything about it. I love the fact that Rocky was able to read well now. You know, the arcade scene where Paulie takes the bottle of what is that, whiskey, I don't know, and he throws it at the Rocky pinball machine. I can't tell you how many times I've been in that arcade. Many times. I used to go there a lot, years ago especially. Now I don't know if it's still there anymore. I gotta go check. But it used to be a big place. And then I remember at one point I went in, they had shut down the half and they made it into something else. But the other half was still there. But the Rocky machine was not there. I used to go in there and play Galaga, Galaxy. Pac-Man was in there. And when you're in the front, you recognize it immediately because it looks just like the movie. And it wasn't filmed in Philadelphia. Not that scene. So I got into that movie a lot. It was like, you know, this whole thing about this angry fighter, which Clubber Lang was 100% right. 100% right. You're ranked number 1 and they're not giving you a shot at the title. That's a ripoff. You know, of course you should get a shot at the title. You're ranked number 1. And Rocky was fighting all these other guys that were like ranked number 20, 25. champion of Germany. So, I always thought about, how did Rocky have no awareness that this guy existed? He was not aware that this Clubber Lang fighter was #1 ranked. You didn't hear the news, you didn't watch, you didn't read a paper, you could read now. I saw the thing where you're reading Goldilocks. So, you think you would have gotten a call from somebody from, I don't know, ABC Wide World of Sports. They would have, hey, we want to interview you on this Clubber Lang guy. He wants to fight you, and he's very angry. How come you're not giving him a shot at the title? Nothing, like he's living on the moon. The only person that knew about Clubber Lang was Mickey, and Mickey was dodging him. Yeah, I don't know. That's that's an iffy story. You don't watch television. Someday, Mr. T, the guy that played Clubber Lang, or Clubber Lang, the character, is being interviewed, and he's like, "I want to fight Balboa. You only hear about this when he finds you at the statue ceremony. That's when you figure out, hey, who's this guy? Oh yeah, I want to fight him." And then Mickey's like, "You're gonna fight him, but you're gonna fight him without me." And the only reason why Mickey changed his mind is because Rocky said, if you don't train me and let me fight this guy, I'm going to tell everybody that you haven't bought a new pair of underwear in 10 years. And then he's like, yeah, you would, wouldn't you? And he goes, oh, absolutely. So that did it. And then he didn't really train either. It was like that fake training, he rented down at the hotel. And I've been to that hotel. I actually used to vote in that hotel, in the lobby downstairs. But he's training there with the music, got Frank Stallone singing, pushing that big plane. Even has a scene with the wife. The first wife comes in and, can I get a kiss or a picture, whatever she says to him, distracts him. He's like, yeah, sure. Stops the speedball there, the speed bag, sorry. But yeah, I really enjoyed that movie. It was very short though. It should have been a little bit longer. And then Lorraine's Hotel, where they end up sleeping to try and toughen him up. I actually have been to that location. I have video on that, Lorraine's Hotel. And the only reason I was able to identify it is because the vendors now, they sell clothes and stuff there. But if you look underneath, you'll see it still says Lorraine's. So I was there, took some video there years ago. I did all the locations back then. I did the Shamrock meat packing plant. I went there. Everybody was looking at me like, who's this guy with the camera? I'm like, I'm making a documentary. Mind your business, right? So anyway, when I went to see it, I go, wait a minute, he doesn't die. Yeah, what's this guy? His name was Tommy. Haven't seen him since '82. He went into hiding. He didn't want to explain himself after, because I guess he thought he died, so he told me that. And then when he actually saw it, he probably said, oh no, I've been telling people I saw this movie, and guess what? Rocky doesn't die. So, and then the ridiculous ending where the only reason Apollo trains him is because he wants to fight him, Rocky, and prove to himself that, he could beat Rocky. It's like, you cannot anymore. You cannot. First of all, you trained him. He's in really good shape. You haven't been training in a while. And on top of that, the whole reason why he retired is because of internal injuries, bleeding. And then in Rocky IV, they show him Rocky going back to the house. Got a little bruised eye here, a little baby bruise. And his son, get the wind now, interferes with my mic. So Rocky Jr., which is really Robert. His real name is Robert. I don't know why they call it Rocky Jr. Rocky Jr. That's a nickname for the father. And somehow Rocky Jr. gets called Rocky Jr. when it's actually Robert. So he's only called Rocky because he's like a big fan of Rocky Marciano. I'm talking about Rocky Balboa. So anyway, he says, where'd you get the black eye? And he says his friend gave it to him, the same friend who gave him that hat. And I'm thinking, okay, what was it, like a little, couple of rounds of just going around and tapping each other on the face. Then you see Rocky, Creed, the first Creed, when Adonis asks Rocky about that fight. And he's like, how you know about that? Were you a cousin or something? Yeah, he looks like a cousin. He looks like he's Apollo's cousin. Not his nephew or son, whatever, but that's his cousin. So he goes, his son. So, but before he says that, he asks him who won that fight. And he says Apollo did, or he did. That's like BS. Yeah, that's who won it. That's why you went. That's how he won the fight. Would you give up? Get a little bruise here. You said, okay, it's over. You win. That's how he won it. You see the way he won it in Rocky 1, and he didn't really win it in that one either. But you see the way he won it in that, and your face is all busted up, your eyes are closed. Matter of fact, you had to get a little razor blade to cut your eye open to let it leak out so you could see again. And yet we're to believe in Rocky 4, in Rocky 3 at the end, when you had that little fight with him, that was enough to beat you. In the meantime, the Russian had to bust your head open, and you still won. And the other guy beat you in the third secretive fight, and it's only a little bruise here, and he won the fight that way. Like, okay, Coogler, that was asinine that you added that in, that Rocky lost that. Rocky would have beaten him up, or at least it would have been something where, okay, we had our fun, let's go home, and it would have been like a draw. No referee in there, nothing, but Apollo, yeah, they went all out. They went all out. Apollo boxed and really fought hard, and Rocky, comes home with a little bruise. I find that asinine and laughable that Stallone even agreed to that. I don't know what that was. Like somebody, like something dived in there. But yeah, it should have been like, that was like an exhibition. Nobody really won anything. We just, danced around for a couple of rounds and, had a little bit of fun, and then we went home. He says, who won that fight? Oh, he won. Yeah, really? What'd you do? You got a shot, and then you said, okay, I'm just going to fake it. Took a dive after. Anyway, I always found that to be ridiculous when he says Apollo won the third fight. And you look like that after? I know I'm repeating myself here, but even now when I think about it, it's very annoying that they added that in there. It's not realistic. And then why wouldn't Apollo come out of retirement and say, wait a minute, I could beat this guy. Let's have a real fight and become champion again. And it looks like he was longing to be champ again. He was lonely. It was quiet. He said, look how quiet it is. He goes, it's very quiet when he retired. And then he beats Rocky, and he doesn't say, hey, listen, you know what? Let's do another fight, massive fight. And you know what? I deserve it. I won the first one, you won the second one, let's settle it. Well, if we're willing to fight in darkness here behind closed doors, why not after fight for the big thing? And that was Apollo's personality. It wasn't like he was shying away from that. So anyway, I did feel out of all the fighters, Apollo was the most believable. Carl Weathers, incredible. That's rare that you get an actor like that to be able to look like he's a real boxer. And intelligent, very intelligent. I know Carl Weathers in real life, extremely sharp, but they even played a fighter that was extremely intelligent. So, yeah, I enjoyed that. And then, of course, you had the four that I briefly mentioned, the Russian there, which was over the top ridiculous. Like, was he hitting him with 2,500 pounds per square inch of force? I don't know. That's another ridiculous thing where the head would come off and roll around the ring. Or your whole front would, flatten, and your nose would be inside your head somewhere. You'd have to pull it back out with a coat hanger. It's like hitting him with like 2,200 pounds of force per square inch. It's like too much exaggeration. But it was entertaining. But once again, very short movie, hour and a half. Apparently, Stallone does not think his audience has the capacity to sit through a 2-hour movie. Of course, Rocky 2 was that long, and Rocky 1 was a little bit less than 2 hours. I think like an hour and 48 minutes or something like that, or an hour and 50 minutes. But Rocky 4 was very short. And a lot of people will say, hey, what did you like better? Did you like the original cut or the director's cut? I prefer the original. The director's cut to me seemed like the fight was a little bit cheesy looking. It didn't look like a professional stadium, auditorium or whatever. It looked like some, cheap place that they had to fight. And I didn't like that whole scene with Apollo in the front yard there with Rocky, you know, walking around with their tailored pants. Did not like that scene. I didn't find that appealing. I Missed a Robot. That was '85. That was, you know, big hit. There's a few other things too, but I prefer the original. Stallone went in there trying to fix it up. There's nothing wrong with it. You should have left it. Just remaster it, make it more vivid, get the music to pop more, which they did. But anyway, all right. Anyway, I am thirsty right now. It's very dry out here, very warm. I know there's a lot of water here, but I'm going to go up that way and get a beverage. Capiche?